Hello everyone, Rimea here, and welcome to this new Super Luigi U level creation video. Today we're making a level with two main mechanics, namely these thwimps over here, these little thwomp guys, and also these climbable poles, which are actually remodeled or retextured, or well, both actually, to make them look like candy canes, kind of at least. And as you can see from the background, this is going to be a desert underground level, in fact, for Luigi's Lost Levels, which is of course the mod for which we're making all this stuff. This is going to be 2-3. So we've already made 2-2 and 2-1, so if you remember, our World 2 theme is kind of like this whole candy aesthetic and whatnot, and so that also ties into the candy canes, of course. So I thought that makes sense. And also here I've got a pretty cool setup that I've come up with for these thwimps, which is actually that they can like rotate onto these blocks, and then I can just detect where the thwimp is and then rotate the block into place like this, and you can create some pretty cool setups with that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started with the level. So like any good underground level, I started this level off with a little above ground section to just introduce the mechanics and also kind of reinforce the whole idea that yeah, we are still in this desert candy world, or dessert world, I suppose. And yeah, so we introduced the thwimp here and also the climbable pole. And also I thought it'd be funny to have the thwimp land on a brick block with a mushroom in it if you're small, to kind of also allow the player to immediately realize this whole killing the thwimp mechanic, which, I mean, in hindsight, I suppose I didn't really end up using that much in the level. I did consider having like a bonus room where you had to kill all the thwimps or whatever, but that didn't really end up coming to fruition, but whatever. Here I also did some background tiling, because, it wouldn't be a Rimea level without some pointless background tiling. And then, after doing a little bit of playtesting, I realized that whole zone was kind of just pointlessly big. There really was no reason for it to be as big as it was, and Luigi U levels are all about, being as compact as possible. So that's why I literally just took the existing zone and basically just scaled it down, even kept mostly the same background rock formations and everything. And now we're suddenly in the underground section of the level, which I guess also introduces this sort of custom underground tile set. Of course, it's just a recolor of the Luigi U underground tile set, though it's been made to look like more of a desert style. It's actually interesting to think about that the Luigi U normal underground tile set doesn't have a desert variation. They just used the normal Mario U desert underground tile set for those levels in Luigi U. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I guess not many things in Luigi U do. Anyways, so of course we have to reinforce the mechanics right away, so we start with just a simple little thwimp setup. Also we have these background rock semi-solid platforms in this tile set, which I kind of use a little bit. I didn't end up using them as much as I maybe thought I would, so maybe those will end up showing back up in a different desert underground level if we're even going to make another one of those. I don't really know actually. But yeah, so that little climbable pole up there is actually for a star coin, because I figured, since we already had that first section which didn't have a star coin, and you gotta be as quick as possible with stuff like that in a Luigi U level, I figured I might as well have a star coin right at the start of the next section. And then here, yeah, so the star coin actually takes you above the normal screen border, and then we have some camera controls to make the camera basically scroll up there. And then you drop back down onto those question mark blocks and the brick blocks and whatnot. And then the original idea was having some thwimps jump from the sides onto those, but then I realized after playtesting that doesn't actually work. They don't really jump that nicely onto a much higher platform like that. So instead they just kind of jump back and forth on those brick and question blocks there, and they just jump one block to the side each. And that works, whatever. I also did some tile god setup there, with, you can see those red blocks there with the star coin. And that was actually because I didn't want players to be able to jump up to the star coin there from below. Only if you went from the left you could actually get the star coin that way. But I ended up realizing that was a little bit strange just using a tile god like that. I mean, you wouldn't actually be able to see it in game. It's just I don't know, it's just a peculiar setup, and it's also weird how you would not be able to get up there otherwise, even though it doesn't make logical sense. So instead, in the end, you'll see this later, I replaced that setup with some brick blocks that just rotate away, which actually makes a lot more sense with the levels mechanics. Oh, you can also see that entrance there, the pipe entrance below those thwimps, because I was actually playtesting there a little bit to see how the thwimps lined up and whatnot. And yeah, now some more lovely background rock tiling because yeah, I mean you have to do a lot of that in these underground levels, especially with the background rock tiling style that I usually go for. And I also have a lot of these decorations in the background rocks, and also actually in the main tile set. I add a lot of decorations to my tile sets just to, you know, make things look a little less repetitive and whatnot. And I think it looks nice. You know, I definitely think this this tile set, you know, it's not quite the color you might expect for a Desert Underground compared to the original game, which has more of a yellow aesthetic than the, you know, this kind of more orange style. But I think it works for the candy kind of aesthetic for World 2 that we're going for. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way the tile set turned out. I hope you like it as well. Of course, it's not like a crazy, fully custom tile set or whatever, but that's fine. Here I tried some stuff with some rotating coins that basically would like rotate in and out of place depending on where the thwimp ended up. But I realized quickly enough that that wasn't really like that didn't really make any sense. It wasn't just like it didn't have any logical mechanical reason for being there. So instead we moved on to that setup that I showed off at the beginning of this video with this thwimp going back and forth on a brick block, and then you could like jump from pole to pole with the thwimp going in between. And that's all well and good, and in fact I you know continued to work on that for a little bit, but I did end up realizing that that probably shouldn't go in a level this early, because that's kind of like a crazy final evolution of mechanics almost. It's funny how this whole setup here, where we're even gonna have a hidden one-up and everything. All of that is very similar to like a lot of other setups in levels I've done in the past. Like for example, the snake block level also has a setup exactly like this, where there's like a hidden one-up and then like a vertical section and whatnot. And I guess I just really like breaking up roughly the middle of my level with a small vertical section, and I also always like including random one-ups in my levels. So that's how you end up with maybe a little bit of repetitiveness in that sense, but I think it's fine. It's not like the exact same thing every time. It's just, you know, I like having hidden one-ups and vertical stuff in my horizontal levels. Which, by the way, speaking of vertical stuff, kind of the whole point of this level is that we're still going to end up going vertically a little bit. So, for example, you notice maybe the pipe at the start of the level had like was going horizontally, like into the side of a mountain, so to speak, instead of just downwards like a normal underground level. And that's actually because if you think about the world map, you end up going like, you know, relatively a little bit higher after 2-3, just like after 2-2, which in our mod is going to be like a sky vertical level, which because you know we've already made that one. So I thought it made sense for this level to also kind of still tie into that whole like going upwards theme. Here I decided that actually I wanted that whole section at the start to be a little bit shorter. It just felt a little bit too spread out considering there wasn't really that much going on there mechanically. So I ended up having to retile things a little bit, but for the most part I think I managed to do that pretty smoothly. Yeah, so here we have a thwimp also jumping back and forth in a little like downwards vertical section, I suppose, where you know, the challenge is to just jump down, avoiding the thwimp. And then here I'm working on setting up what would be the first actual appearance of that whole brick block spinning back and forth mechanic, which is now not combined with the pole yet because, you know, you've got to save mechanical stuff like that for a little later on. So yeah, I ended up deciding to just have a simple jump with that setup at first to kind of introduce the mechanic. And then up there's also a brick block with another mushroom if small. If you're not aware, a mushroom if small is basically where if you're Super Luigi, Big Luigi, or Fire Luigi, or whatever, you'll just get a coin from that. But if you're small Luigi, then you'll get a mushroom. And it's basically just a good way of balancing a level in terms of power progression and whatnot. Here I moved the setup we made earlier into place, so now it's actually going to be integrated into the level. And then here for the second star coin, I had this idea of these brick blocks not just like being for the thwimps to move on, but also when the brick blocks like move together, once the thwimps move to the right and left, then they actually kind of encase that star coin, so you can wall jump and get the star coin, and then wall jump out before the blocks move away again. And that ended up being a very cool star coin. I think I'm really happy with the way that whole setup turned out. The funny thing about these poles is that even though they're sprites, obviously, and they even, they're slightly modeled, they're mostly 2D, but still, they do have models and normal maps and whatnot. They actually take up tile set space within the actual like loaded version of the level. So if I were to place any background rocks behind the poles, which I don't do throughout this level, they would get replaced, and you just have like gaps and then the poles in between them. Which would be really weird, and I don't know why that's how this sprite works. Like, no other sprite in the game works like that, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, that actually means that, as you can see here, I'm actually trying to purposely avoid having any background rocks behind the poles, because that would break them. It's really strange, honestly. At this point, I'm starting to prepare for what would be the vertical section to end off this level, because like I talked about, I did want this level to kind of still have that vertical vibe that 2-2 also has a lot. And I also realized that having a vertical section with the climbable poles, of course, makes a lot of sense. So that's what we're working on here. And oh yeah, here I also had a funny idea with a question mark block. Going back and forth instead of a brick block, and then that could have the power up, and of course it would have a thwimp on top of it, and that's pretty funny. I actually accidentally paused the time-lapse recording for a little bit too long and ended up skipping past some tiling, so yeah, now all of a sudden we basically have that entire vertical section I talked about already tiled. Though I didn't actually like do any of the setups yet in terms of like thwimps and whatnot. I kind of just have some placeholder thwimps right there, for example. But yeah, for the most part, sorry to say, we missed most of that exciting tiling. But basically, as you can see, we just have a couple of poles to bring the player up to that green pipe there, or if they want to get the third star coin, they have to find a way to get into the red pipe. But yeah, here we have a really crazy idea I had, where basically the thwimps here would, of course, jump back and forth between the pole and whatnot. But actually the brick blocks wouldn't, like, cross the pole, because, the player could still get pushed by the brick blocks if they were to be moved across the pole. So instead, the brick blocks actually move up and down. So the thwimps are synchronized, and then the brick blocks actually move up or down relative to the thwimps to catch the thwimps, basically, before they fall on the other side. And it's just a very subtle little like change on the whole setup that we've got throughout the level, but I really like it, and I hope people notice that it's a little bit different. And then here for this red pipe, to get into it, you have to hit these thwimps from below, because of course they are on the brick block. So I guess we did end up using that whole hitting a brick block thing from the start of the level. I guess that kind of ties back to the end. That wasn't really intentional, but it's nice. But yeah, so for this red pipe here, you just have to hit those thwimps, and then you can get into the red pipe for the third star coin. Some more amazing background rock tiling. I do try to do a little bit less nowadays than I have in the past, because, for example here, I don't cover the entire background with background rock tiles. It's only there to basically kind of support some of the more floaty sections of tiles and whatnot. I think it looks okay. Now I start doing some other like odd jobs in this zone before moving on to the last two zones. So for example here I realized the thing I was talking about before, where I swapped out that tile god thing with some brick blocks that are going to move away, and those get activated by the star coin, and that kind of ties back to the whole moving brick block mechanic, so that's nice. And now for the goal pole zone. So this actually has the sky desert background, because like I talked about, this level, kind of like 2-2, is supposed to convey the idea that you're kind of going up, in this case, through a cave, and then end up like higher than you started. So I hope people don't get caught off guard by the fact that there is just randomly a sky background in this zone, and there will also be a sky background in the bonus section that we're about to make. But yeah, so far this is all pretty basic goal pole setup stuff, just a lot of tiles. It's always like the largest stretch of flat tiling that you usually have to do in levels, at least for me, is during the goal pole. So it's always kind of an exercise in just trying to make flat stuff look good. But I think I did a good job here. And then here we're starting to work on the the whole goal pole mechanical setup. And in this case, it's a little goal pole staircase, a classic thing. And that's going to get rotated back and forth. And then, of course, it's going to have a thwimp on top of it, which is going to determine the rotation of the brick blocks. And I actually ended up changing this setup a little bit later on, but basically it just means that you have to avoid the thwimp whilst using the typical goal pole staircase, which also moves back and forth. So it's pretty cool, I think. And then, yeah, here we're starting to work on that bonus room. This is for the third star coin. And basically, I ended up having a lot of different ideas for bonus rooms, but the level turned out to kind of have not enough space for some of my ideas for the actual, like, just normal level. So I just ended up using an idea that I had for the level itself for this bonus room, which is to have a thwimp going back and forth and like rotating an entire platform that this player also has to stand on, as opposed to throughout the rest of the level where the thwimps are the only ones who are on the brick blocks. Also, you might notice that the aspect ratio of the video has changed a little bit here. I accidentally went out of full screen mode in Miyamoto during the final part of the recording here, so that's why there are black bars on the top and the bottom of the screen right now. Yeah, here I'm just setting up the typical thwimp stuff, but now they're going to rotate this entire platform that the player also has to stand on. And in fact, the thwimps are even going to affect the star coins rotation there, so that's pretty cool, I think. Yeah, now just some background rock tiling, and yeah, the level is basically done. So I guess without further ado, let's check it out in-game. Okay, so here we are in-game. First of all, we introduced both of the main mechanics, the climbable pole and the thwimp, and in fact we can kill the thwimp and get a mushroom for it even. And then here in the underground section, we have another thwimp to reinforce that whole mechanic, and we also have this kind of sneaky climbable pole up here. And that also has these brick blocks that move away, which I suppose kind of ties into some of the stuff we see later on in the level with the moving brick blocks and whatnot. And that also gives us some hidden coins down there. And speaking of hidden stuff, we also have a hidden one up here, because it wouldn't be a Rimea level without that. Then here we have that funny, back and forth brick block setup that we use throughout the rest of the level, really. With the thwimp activating a location to move those brick blocks. It's really cool, and I also really like the way I used it for the star coin here. That wall jump is actually pretty satisfying to pull off, so yeah, I'm really happy with the way that turned out. And here we have another power up there with the thwimp as well. It's really funny. And then here we have those really cool brick blocks that actually move up and down instead of left and right, as you can see, because the hit brick block there actually moves up. Yeah, here we can hit another thwimp, which I guess ties back to the start of the level, and that allows us to get to the third star coin room, which at first maybe looks like there's nothing going on, and then the thwimps start moving and it goes a little bit crazy. So yeah, the thwimps actually affect the movement of these platforms here, and it even affects the movement of the third star coin there. And then, yeah, here, of course, we once again reinforce the mechanic at the very end with the moving staircase there, and it's really cool. Honestly, I'm really happy with the way this level turned out. But yeah, I guess that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and all of that stuff. And I'm still talking because we're getting the toad thing, so that's taking a little longer than I was expecting. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and bye bye.